Hello, I'm Paul Louis Metzger, the Director of New Wine, New Wineskins, the Institute for Cultural Engagement. It's my pleasure and privilege to introduce to you today Mr. Greg Goodwin, the Chairman of the Kuni Foundation. Greg, so good to be with you today, and thanks for being willing to be interviewed for the upcoming conference, From Isolation to Invitation, a conference on disabilities.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And we're grateful too to the Kuni Foundation for your sponsorship of our conference coming up on From Isolation to Invitation. And Greg, in your work with the Kuni Foundation, could you please tell us a bit about its story, its mission, and its vision?
Sure. Well, the Kuni Foundation was formed in 2005 by Wayne Kuni, who was my business partner. He died in 2006. But what he did was, Kuni Automotive was a group of luxury car dealerships that started in Beaverton, Oregon in 1970 and grew to a fairly large organization spread around the West. Our headquarters is in Vancouver, Washington. And what Wayne did before he died was he transferred his ownership in the company to a charitable trust. And that charitable trust was like any other shareholder of our company. But when we sold the company mid-2016, that was a liquidity event for the various shareholders, including the Kuni Foundation, which became a fairly large private family foundation at that time. And because of that, our work has expanded, our capacity has expanded. We operate in two specific areas that the Kuni family had challenges that they faced and within their family that caused them to really direct us in terms of our mission toward these causes. And one is supported housing and other ways of supporting individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities. Adults primarily is where we're focused. And then we have a significant effort in funding cancer research, not specific cancers, but specific stages of cancer research. And so we're donors to several Northwest-based cancer institutions, including largely Oregon Health Sciences in Portland.
Thank you. And what are some of the ventures that you invested in particular? You mentioned OHSU and the like. Any others that you would wish to articulate?
Sure, you bet. Well, very proud of a place in Vancouver where the Kuni Foundation is the primary funder. It's called Stevens Place. Mm-hmm. Stevens Place is a facility designed for adults with developmental disabilities. And the whole range of disabilities involving those challenges. For example, we have residents who suffered from traumatic brain injury at some point in their lifetime. We have some folks who are on the autism spectrum, and then people with more what you see traditionally in terms of intellectual disabilities. And it's a residential community. People live there full time. They're all adults, but it's quite an age range in terms of adults. There are over 40 apartments available for those adults. It's an assisted living facility. So, the target is, individuals who can benefit from living in community, engage in some of their own care and maintenance, and most of the residents, I think perhaps all of the residents have part-time jobs. So the quality of life that people are experiencing there, their ability to be included in various aspects of the community around them is very exciting. It's a wonderful facility, and it's kind of the population's growing gradually over time, but it's exciting to see the individuals who live there really thrive.
Well, I think you'll be pleased to know that Heather Stenberg, who serves as the executive director there, is going to be speaking on a panel for our upcoming conference.
Well, and maybe you'll use this part of the video when I say that Heather Stenberg is one of my favorite people.
Yes.
And I had the chance to work with her for years. And so very excited that she's the CEO of Stevens Place.
Right, and we actually interviewed her there, and what a beautiful facility, and meeting a few of the residents, and just one of them was on his way out the door for his job, and then just even some of the organizations around there for Habitat for Humanity, I think, is that not correct? It's
Yes.
right there, and
Nearby.
a church and a grade school, elementary school, and so yeah, it was great to experience a bit of that work. Any other organizations that besides OHSU and Stevens Place that you'd want to mention in terms of the work, whether it's with cancer or disabilities?
Well, I mentioned in terms of disabilities, it's interesting, just first of all, I'd mention too, there's a place called New Hope Farms in Goldendale, Washington, which is also a residential facility for folks in the IDD community, and it's been there a long time. I think has a lot of support from a local church community, and that was actually our first grant years ago in this space. We read about the community having a problem with the water. They needed money to dig a deeper well to have good water for their residents. Later we found they needed a vehicle as well, so we were able to help them with both things. And the Murdoch Foundation, Kuni Foundation stepped in and were able to help. That was exciting. And also we just recently made a grant to an organization called the Kelsey in Northern California. It's the founder of that effort is a young woman by the name of Michaela Connery. Michaela's become a good friend to me and to our board, and to Angela Holt, our executive director, or president of the Kuni Foundation. Michaela has founded something called the Kelsey.org, the Kelsey, which is her vision is to build inclusive communities for adults with disabilities, primarily intellectual disabilities. And she just got news that her organization received major financial help from the city of San Jose. So we made a grant to Michaela to further the effort toward opening the first facility, and this apartment project that she's working on in San Jose is going to be 111 units, and I believe 20% of them will be inclusive. And they plan to have full-time inclusion concierges who work in the facility and help their disabled residents, who actually would live in the facility and work there full-time, and help the residents who live there who face challenges and a variety of disabilities to access all of the support in the community that's available to them.
So far more integrated. It would just be a far more integrated kind of system.
Yeah, I love the term that Michaela uses, that I'm not sure she created it, but I think it's a wonderful way to describe her goal, and she's in that millennial age group that had this experience. She said, she grew up around intellectual individuals facing various disabilities, and she said, those of us in that generation who were the first to have mainstreaming in our classrooms, etc., with children with a variety of challenges, we consider ourselves to be inclusion natives. And our goal is to extend that into adulthood, and we want to live in communities that resemble that experience we had as children, where it's just the way we live is to be inclusive and have this apartment building that she and a variety of people are working to create will have market-based apartments, and so people who are paying a market price to live there, and workforce housing, and then low-income affordable housing, and
that's a beautiful vision.
It's a beautiful vision.
And inclusion natives.
Inclusion natives.
Yeah.
And I love that term.
Yeah.
It basically says, well, I'm 68 years old. I am a digital immigrant, okay? But I suspect that our friend Derek, who's behind the camera there, would be considered a digital native. And that's a different that's a different perspective. that
I'm
we
a
come to
digital
with-
Neanderthal. That's
Oh,
what
there
I
you
am.
go, okay.
I'm a digital Neanderthal. So I just still learning as we go. But yeah, so that's a beautiful vision, beautiful term. Again, inclusion natives. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, very good. What led you to the Kuni Foundation, Greg?
Well, I was the CEO of Kuni Automotive for 18 years. I was part of the company for 25 years. Wayne Kuni and I met at a critical time for me and my family. I was general manager of a Honda dealership on Oahu for a few years. Worked for a company based in the Bay Area that owned that dealership for 12 years. And we knew we were transitioning. And Wayne and I met at just exactly the right time. And together we bought a Lexus dealership in Denver. I operated that for 8 years and then became CEO when he decided to retire. And a lot of my friends who have known me for a long time in the business, I've just finished a 40-year career in the business. They really wonder, exactly how did this all come about, because it's such an unusual story. I've always felt that Wayne Kuni, for some reason, decided to adopt me, and it really changed my life. And so I hope to be a part of the Kuni Foundation, along with his family and a couple of others that are on the board with us, and I just am honored to be a part of it and plan to be there as long as it makes sense for them and for me.
So going from the profit sphere, the business sphere, to the nonprofit sphere, the personal connection is what drove that.
There's a bond.
Yeah, a bond.
Yeah, and
Relational bond.
yeah, absolutely right. And I'm so indebted to Wayne, indebted to his family and the shareholders in Kuni who had faith in me to succeed him when he was facing terminal cancer. And yeah, it's been a very, very satisfying journey in a lot of different ways. And to end up being able to help run a foundation that exists because of his business acumen and his long-term vision and his delight in mentoring. Wayne was one of the most relational people I've ever known, and a strong judge of people, and someone willing to invest in people that he believed in.
That's exciting. Yeah, not just financial investment, but relational investment for the long haul.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As you look back on your time with the Kuni Foundation, what is a story related to someone with a disability that has really spoken to you and really moved you?
Well, it's funny, when you say that, the first thing I think of is, we're taping this just the week after the Super Bowl, and there was the Microsoft commercial that everybody's talking about with a nine-year-old boy with disabilities, and I think his name was Owen. That's a great story, and I think reminds me of two of the residents of Stevens Place that come to mind right away. One who, when he came there several years ago, just had a lot of challenges in terms of relating to others, and I think having confidence in himself. And it's been wonderful to see that confidence develop over time. Heather and her staff are just amazing at, encouraging and just the patient process that it takes to help someone, sort of build confidence in themselves to be able to do many of the things for himself that all of us take for granted. The other is a young woman who lives at Stevens Place, who just enrolled in her first college class, and she's an amazing person. I know she's very excited, and I hope to see more of that. Want to see, Stevens Place is a community of individuals who face a variety of disabilities, and they live in some ways some of the hours of the day separate from everybody else. But it is a thriving community and very effective in helping them move out into the community and be included in so many ways that are really positive for them. And so I'm seeing more and more of that, and that's delightful for all of us.
Exciting, beautiful. What does the Kuni Foundation see as its long-term, or the long-term needs to be addressed in supporting the disability community?
Well, that the original vision, which came from Joan Kuni, and it is called the Wayne D. Kuni and Joan E. Kuni Foundation. Joan talked about this a lot, but really having children facing intellectual disabilities, what happens to them when we're gone, when that support is no longer available to them. And she knew, of course, that the Kunis had the financial means to mitigate that, that transition and the difficulty of that transition in many ways, but she also knew that many people don't have those resources. So, our vision, I guess I'd say that, we're really looking for ways to partner with others, I think that when a lot of children who have disabilities have the experience in schools that they have, there are a lot of positive experiences along the way. They learn a lot, but I really feel as if it's difficult for an individual to get a full-time job or even a part-time job when they leave that environment, that what they really just need more support than we provided in the past. There's almost a sense that when someone graduates from the school system, they're an adult now and they should be independent. And I think our brothers and sisters who face a variety of challenges like these move into that stage of life, young adulthood. They need the kind of support that they had in their school environment, in their school experience. And yet, I think it's really on all of us to find ways to include them in our churches, in our workplace, in our community, and the places where we live. And the Kuni Foundation's vision is to find ways to sponsor that kind of activity any way we can.
To pick up on Michaela, I think you said her name was, that inclusion natives idea, would it be the case that you would hope that continues to multiply so that more and more people are connected even from early ages on up, so that when it gets past secondary schooling and the like for people with disabilities, it just seems more nativist that they're going to be included more and more in our society at large? Would that be a part of what you would be after?
That's, if Michaela were sitting here, she would, much more articulately than me, she would really state that as a challenge. I've talked to her a lot about her vision, her research. She's got a master's degree from Harvard. She's a very exciting, engaging, and well-informed individual. And she's spent a lot of time in the community of families and individuals with disabilities, and she's very well-informed. And I think it's exactly what you're saying. I think she has a cousin by the name of Kelsey. That's why it's called the Kelsey. Her project is called the Kelsey, who's profoundly disabled. And I asked Michaela at one point, I said, so speaking of this project in San Jose, do you think Kelsey could live in that community successfully? And she said, absolutely. First of all, she thinks the community of people who live in a project like that will be drawn to support, commune with, spend time with, mentor, and support these individuals any way they can. That's why they would choose to live there. So, I think it's exactly what you're saying. It's, I think a lot of times we build organizations. We might build a workplace. We might build a church that we see as having an open door to everyone. I was thinking about this earlier today, thinking about this interview and thinking that I think the church I go to is an open door. But when I, inside those doors, I don't think I'm seeing the cross-section of individuals with the challenges that we're trying to address here. Being regular members, regular participants in the ways that, perhaps if we just looked around in the community around us, we might find more of that than we really think is there. So we have an open door. And I really think we need, as people of faith, to go out into the community and knock on doors. And invite in a different way. Yeah. Someone who's isolated is not going to take that first step. And so, I think what Michaela's envisioning is, a lot of varied and consequential support around individuals who need that. And I think she feels, as I feel, having spent really a lot of my adult life around people with these types of challenges, we benefit as much as they do or more, from the experience.
Just further to this, and you had mentioned this with Mr. Kuni and just his impact on you and the relationship, and I think even here, like you said, we are impacted. We're impacted perhaps even more. Relationships that are healthy, there's always mutuality,
That's
right?
Exactly.
And so, just to that point, I think in a society, if our society is isolating people with disabilities, not only are they impacted negatively, but I think we're also impacted negatively because we're not given the opportunity to be stretched, to grow, to see our own blind spots and the like. And that just even the matter of we think we're welcome, we think we are, and we may very well be, but we often have a lack of an awareness of what's really needed. And I think, our society is diminished, and we're diminished as people if there's not that kind of mutuality. Is what I'm thinking about when I'm hearing you talking about this now.
I often think that nearly all of us have known someone with Down syndrome, through our experience growing up, or in the workplace, or in our church, or whatever. And I've known a number of individuals. I would say I've been blessed to know a number of individuals with Down syndrome over the years. And I've always believed that they are a certain kind of angel, that they are, there's an innocence there that just by being around someone like that, you regain something that most of us, is diminished over time because of our experience in life as we move into adulthood and through those years. And I think we really gain from that experience. There's another group that I think all of us really need to think about, and that is, we're really great these days at helping individuals who suffer a brain injury in war to survive. But I question whether we're really, and I think they get a lot of support from the VA and disability benefits, etc. But I think the broader community, because those people who serve in our armed forces are a small percentage of society that's already somewhat isolated from the mainstream, and I think people who have come back with severe injuries of any kind, I think there's a danger that they're even more isolated, and there's so many of them now. And I think it's a challenge to all of us to think about what's our obligation to those folks.
Great question. What closing words of hope and challenge would you like to share with the viewers in support of the disability community? Greg.
Well, first of all, I thank you and Multnomah and New Wineskins for convening this conference. I wish I could be with everyone there. I'm not able to join you, but this time. But I'm excited, and I hope that everyone in the room regards this moment as the beginning of something. That together we can all commit to that could really make a difference. I have no doubt that the faith community, when we learn of this sort of challenge, I think it has the capacity to inspire a lot of people to think about ways of making a difference, for these members of our community in ways that we may not have considered before. So I thank you and all of the folks who participated and came to learn about this, to network with each other. I just would ask all of you to find ways to turn this into something lasting and meaningful for you and for members of your community.
Thank you. It's a good word, closing word to us, and an opening word for the future. So Greg, thank you very much, and we're grateful to you, the Kuni Foundation, Angela, and others for helping to make possible this conference, from isolation to invitation, Conference on Disabilities. With Greg Goodwin, I'm Paul Lewis-Metzger, Director of New Wine, New Wineskins, and thank you for joining us for New Wine Tastings.
Thank you, Paul.